It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the UNF North Florida's head volleyball coach, Coach Kristen Wright. How are you doing today?
Doing well.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college volleyball?
Well, I knew I always wanted to be a coach. I was pretty young and just a leader. I loved my high school coach, Maria Kolatz. I just felt like she had a tremendous impact on me. Playing the level that I did, top 10 in the country, I think deep down inside I always knew I wanted to be D1, but it was really hard for me to put that above my family. And so for a while there, I went the old school route and really traditionally just set out to be a high school coach, like my high school coach. But I just never felt fully like content. And it's like a contentment challenge, combination of those two things where I knew I would be in the right spot for me.
What was that experience like for you going to college and going to UC San Diego?
Well, and that's funny you say that because the two get confused. I actually went to the University of San Diego, and then there is UC San Diego there in San Diego. So San Diego is the private school there on the hill in Mission Beach. But what was my first of all, my decision to go there was interesting. I was recruited all over the country. I've actually played both indoor volleyball and basketball. I come from a basketball family, and so club and what to do in volleyball was not anything my parents knew. They just knew I loved it. My friends played it. So we kind of did both, but I did club volleyball and not club basketball. And I ended up ultimately getting offered by Power Fives in both and some in combos. Like, for example, Oregon offered me in both. UCLA recruited me in both. Texas A&M, off the top of my head, a lot of East Coast schools. I knew I wanted to stay close to home. I was from California, so I kind of entertained the East Coast, the Midwest, but I really just wanted to be within driving distance of home. And I narrowed it down to Stanford, UCLA, and San Diego. And for various reasons, I chose San Diego and made the best decision of my life. It was a mid-major. I didn't grow up with that being my dream school, but a lot of that decision has to do with where I'm at currently now. So I feel like I was valued as a person. We made it to the top of the country. I went to the tournament every single year. We went undefeated my senior year and won a conference championship. And I was able to attain some personal goals along the way.
What was that feeling like getting to put on that USD volleyball uniform and representing San Diego?
It's just a lot of pride. A lot goes into being a Division I athlete. And so just being, just making sure you're grateful but also working hard and doing the very best that you absolutely can was really important to me, and leaving a legacy, like leaving my mark on that program. That was the deciding factor between, going to a Stanford or UCLA at the time, which was top 5, top 10 schools. And, I really would have had to battle, and I would have, but I really wanted to be in a place where I knew I could make a tremendous difference. And I think I did that, and I think I also got a lot more in return than I set out to do individually myself.
What were some of your personal playing accomplishments and accolades?
Naturally, the winning a championship is the most important thing to me. Going to the NCAAs every single year, even if we didn't win the conference, but playing a tough enough schedule and being successful enough to getting picked at an at-large in a predominantly mid-major conference at the time. And so that was exciting being a captain. I think the icing on the cake was my senior year. We were really successful. We worked really hard in the spring of my going into my senior year, made some changes to how we did things as leaders, and ended up being one of 3 All-Americans that year, which is pretty cool on one team, and it being a mid-major. And first team all region goes into that. So I'd say that. I'd say being, an All-American on a championship level team.
Coming out of college, what was that experience like for you going into coaching and becoming a head coach in both indoor and beach volleyball?
Well, I really dabbled with beach. It wasn't my primary sport. My junior year of college, I started to play heavily. That's actually where I met my husband. So he came out there to play on the AVP tour, and that's how we met, was on South Mission Beach. And eventually I played with my partner and teammate, Noelle Froman, in a AAA in Manhattan Beach. And that was the beginning of my husband and I's story to being married and being together for 20 years now and having 2 kids, and the rest was history. So I originally started out indoor. I coached high school indoor, and then when I went to junior college, Miracosta, we started the indoor and beach program as the director of volleyball there, from scratch. It originally had indoor, but beach had just been kind of, I guess, set out, and the NCAA wasn't official yet in 2014. And my husband and I did that together. And by 2016, it was an NCAA sport. So we were a part of that movement to get beach off the ground at the junior college level, as well as the NCAA level, together. And now it's the fastest growing sport in NCAA history.
What
And
was
so
that?
to become, go ahead, sorry.
What was that experience like for you going to Miracosta?
That was a jump in my career at the time. I had a young family, and I felt ready. They weren't infants anymore, and I felt like I could recruit a little bit. That was my biggest fear, is being away from them at night or in weekends, or putting that pressure on my husband to care for the family. So I felt like they're a little bit more independent, I mean. And it was fun. I had a really good friend to this day, and just a mentor and a perfect fit as an AD, Pat Conahan. I just felt like he just really believed in myself and trusted me, and just really laid back, supportive, friendly. So he knew that I was really successful, and obviously knew how to build a culture that cultivated championships, and he knew that it would take time. And so, there's a lot of work to do. We didn't even have like pole sleeves in the ground, and so we talked a lot about just what would attract, how could we win over the current junior colleges. It was right on the water in Carlsbad, so recruiting, doesn't matter what level, is the most important thing. And I became pretty good at it, but I also could sell the beach really well. And so I was able to win over, by my last year there, we had half our team committed and offered D1. So the level that we were training at and the type of athlete and capability was really high, indoor and beach. And on the beach side, we won a 3C2A national, what we call a national championship. It's a state championship, because California only plays itself. There's 83 junior colleges playing in the 3C2A, but separate from the NJCAA. But it's really high level volleyball. And
Well,
it was fun. It was fun. It developed a lot of my recruiting skills and budgeting and the infrastructure of college. It's a little bit different than high school.
While there, what was that like, getting to compete for championships year in and year out?
The first couple years first year we were just trying to get to that championship level and conference, and then, individual state. It was interesting because we could take the same team on the indoor team and put them on the beach. So it was good. It was all about the process and teaching, and really in those girls' lives, a lot of those talented players, they were there for a reason. Maybe something was happening at home, or there's just, a motivational flaw that really needed to be corrected. So, what was most important to Doug and I, which is my husband, is that we created a family, like a second family atmosphere that just really attracted a lot of people, but also made a lot of amazing memories. So I think that culture, that environment that you cultivate, coupled with the teaching and our experience, both of us were high level players. We were both Division I players, and I think, putting assistants around us, we have a lot of great people to thank that were around us that were able to support and be a part of the process. But we were able to get that thing off the ground pretty quick, and, win 5 championships in 2 sports, and it starting from scratch is pretty cool. And winning it, the 3C2A in that 4th year, which propelled me to this job, was pretty exciting.
Of course, coming off of those 5 championships, what was that transition like coming to North Florida and starting a program there?
It was a lot, I think at that point, that was 2014. And then I put my resume out here in 2017, December 17th of 2017. And I took the job January 1st of 2018. And I went right into beach season with my husband, who volunteered at the time, and I hired a new staff. But that transition was a lot, starting with the personal life. I was asked to sell my house, put it on the market, pack up, and get across the country in 2 weeks. Now, some people do that different ways. We're always going to be a pack. We did it together. So we had to uproot our kids out of school, and they had to, that was tough, a lot of tears. But we knew they were young, and we knew we would get through it. We knew we would. It was a good cultural family environment in Jacksonville, and where we were sent our kids to school, we felt very comfortable. The transition was a lot because there's a lot that I didn't know. Coaching's coaching, so a budget's a budget. Compliance rules are compliance rules. You adapt to them, you adhere to them, you make sure you know them. But I think there's a lot, navigating, like, what's the culture like at UNF? I don't really think you can really truly get that down in just a single visit. I mean, you have to really understand the environment that you're in. And one thing I like to do with wherever I'm at is make it better. Like, how can I be, someone that's positive? I'm always going to be playing to win, and winning is, okay, what's the goals of our organization? What's expected of me? And how can I encourage other people to be the best versions of themselves and still connect with them? Not everybody is going to like you, but we all can respect everybody. So I think just that initial understanding of what the culture was like in Division I athletics, that took some time. What was expected of me, what wasn't, what were some of the pressures that were put on myself that I didn't really recognize, what were the right questions to ask, and what should be the initial goals right out of the floodgate in year 1. So that transition of, taking over a new team, deciding right away, okay, do I want to keep the staff that's currently there? Do I not? Why or why not? And all those decisions you live with. And so that those transitory pieces are really a big part of my story.
Of course, after getting announced as the next head coach, what was that feeling like the first time you got to step onto the court?
It was a combination of just excitement, a dream feeling. I mean, because it really was. I was proud of myself. That worked really hard to get to where I was. And I always people used to joke that I treated like the high school team that I used to coach at, which is this small Christian school, like it was a Division I program at that time. I always went above and beyond where I was at, not knowing that I would get where I was getting, where I get, but just there was always a higher calling. It's about significance for me and making an impact on the lives of the student athletes and giving back to what was given to me as a player, as a coach.
Being a head coach, what has it been like surrounding the coaching staff around you and the players around you to build your culture?
The first great decision that a young coach in the industry must make, whether you're young or old or at any organization, is your staff. A loyal staff is really important. A staff that 100% knows what they're going to get from me. So having a clear and compelling vision, having roles for them and having things for them to grow into, and my ability to articulate how to grow that and grow them into those roles is really important to a staff, because they have goals too, and they have every right to hit those goals, all the while hitting the mission of your current organization. So I think developing a staff, and then obviously developing a culture, which is only impacted by people. So having the right people on the bus, John Gordon talks about that a lot. You got to have the right people that want your coaching style, and your staff's. You got to be consistent to who you are. You can't say one thing in the recruiting process and be another. That doesn't really work with big picture. And so I think, I think there's some things that were probably some blind spots early on in my career that could have been better articulated, or probably it amounted to just lack of experience. But where I'm at now in my career, I could easily guide and mentor a lot of younger people in the industry, in our industry, and help a lot, give them a lot of advice to be the best versions of themselves. Because there's many ways to the top, so to speak. It's just being consistent and diligent in those systems and how you get there, being very articulate, because at the end of the day, the outcome is going to come. If you're recruiting the right people, if you know how to attract them, if you know how to develop them and you know how to retain them, and you just keep evolving, there's going to be an attraction that leads to winning. And once you win and you keep learning how to maintain that winning, that's what building a championship culture is all about.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've started to build for North Florida's volleyball program?
Yeah, it's built on trust, loyalty, hard work. Where my niche in the industry is being a certified mental trainer, is just having the methodology and the know-how, not only what, but how to lead in sport as a coach. I don't have to rely on a sports psychologist. I'm not a sports psychologist. I don't have enough education, but I've probably read enough books and done enough studying to be equivalent to a sports psychologist. I can tell you that. And I think the culture and climate that you create, you're going to reap what you sow. So, I don't think it's easy to get to the top. I think you have to have tough, gritty kids. And really they're not kids, they're adults. So respecting them and empowering them and collaborating with them is a really new thing. That old school way is really not working. People want to be heard. They want to be utilized. They want to be able to ask questions. They want to be pushed. They want structure, but they're not going to listen to you if they don't have a relationship with you. And so, that value system of relationship is really important to me, that we're coaching the whole person, that we're able to reach their heart and some of them their soul, if that's something you believe in, and really just encourage that next generation to be better leaders, which leads into their life, be good teammates, know what commitment is, especially this day and age. We do a lot of consulting and discussion about commitment, because with NIL and all the different things that are happening in Division I athletics. It's easy to get lost in all that, and they're all great. I'm not against it. You know, and you got to be really fluid and adaptive to the times, or you got to get out of the industry. But what I would say is you can't lose the integrity of sport and what it provides. And it provides, you know, character production and life skills that I would argue it's the best way to learn that. And so I think some of our better coaches are leaving the industry or are just exhausted fighting, you know, this, you know, me attitude with sports that we're all a part of cultivating, but recognizing you don't have to sacrifice one for the other. It's okay to allow someone to make money and represent themselves, just so long as you balance the desire of why you got into teaching and coaching sport to begin with. And a lot of coaches will say, I've never met one that hasn't said that they want to impact lives. Whether it's PC or not, most people truly do want to be looked at as someone that's significant and caring, and therefore, you know, someone and help them be a better version of themselves. And there's no better feeling than that. You can't go to Walmart and buy that, right? Or anywhere really. So I think coaches right now have to buckle down and really sit in their why. And even if that adapts, be true to it and live that out. Make sure their actions are living out what their words are actually saying.
Of course, for you, what was that 2021 season like, that milestone season of going to the national championship and being the champs?
In 2021, we didn't reach any championship. We just had the best year in North Florida history. A lot of milestones. That was the year you can kind of see what we were doing was working. And we also, you know, had a tremendous student athlete choose to come to us, Dariana Hollingsworth Santana, that I think saw in the COVID year 2020 that we still were moving the ship. And I was still a 2-sport head coach. So my hands were tied both ways. I was running 2 staffs, recruiting 2 classes. I was about dead. But the beach side we did. So on the beach side, we won the ASUN Beach Championship. I was coach of the year. And all the while, at the same exact time in COVID, we had our best year in, which was 2021, but it was the 2020 season. You could see the numbers jump. We got second in the league, which is the highest finish in conference. And, you know, we had to play a tough schedule because it was all regional based. It was not about RPI or anything. It was just like, we're just trying to roll out a season and let these student athletes have just a little glimpse of what life is like. And then after that season, although it was surreal on the beach side and really rewarding on the indoor side, the transition happened on the administration side, where we hired a new AD, Nick Morrow. And when we sat down, we really put our heads together and decided it was time to split the sports and allow the student athletes, for the first time in history, to have a fully devoted year-round head coach in each sport. And being that I'm primarily an indoor coach, an indoor player, an indoor background, it was hard to give up beach, although I'd been a head coach for a very, 8 years at that time, director of volleyball, if you will, and very successful. I just really wanted to put all my focus on indoor. So that next fall was the first time I wasn't going out to beach practice. I was fully available. You talk about relationships, check-ins, all those things, developing your staff. I wasn't able to do that in my first 4 seasons at North Florida. So really, I feel like the last couple years has been my startup in indoor, because I kind of had my hands tied time-wise, but still moved the program. I inherited the program at 268 RPI, and in that next fall, we had as high as 49th in the country, which is pretty crazy if you think about it, how quickly that is. And So we played back-to-back spring and fall, and yeah, that was our biggest jump. Bree Walp, she was a transfer, our first like big transfer. We really noticed how much our block needed to improve, and she physically really helped our program a lot. She's a fierce competitor, and we had Juliana Askew at that time setting, and she did a fantastic job getting our program off the ground. And Dari ended up graduating. Juliana and Bree graduated and then went on to play at another school, and Juliana went closer to home. But those three kids were huge, coupled with a lot of people that put their team, put our program on the map. Well, everyone did, because what was asked of them, the way that they grew, how they went about their business and did it with our staff, is really just rewarding. It's really rewarding watching people buy in and stay committed and loyal, because that's what we're about. And I know if they can do it here, they can go out in their life and impact their families or jobs at a really high level. And that's really important to me, that we're sending out world changers with whatever they decide to do in their life.
What does a typical game day look like for you as a head coach versus for your players?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I can't speak for my players. I think I can remember how I viewed it, but as a head coach, I just like to be calm. I have my own routines. Most coaches do. At that point, everything's prepared. You've done the work, and you just got to let them fly. It's all about the preparation. And if you've better prepared for them to execute, you should be calm. But those little nervous little butterflies feelings, I always say that's because you care, and that's why we compete. If we were all robots and showed up the same every single day, it would be kind of easy, because it would just be your physical makeup. But that's not what we have to address as people. There's the psychosomatic, there's a lot of the psychic, you've got a lot of responses in the nervous system that we're aware and unaware of, that we're constantly fighting to have the edge over as athletes and coaches, learning how to navigate that with our players day in and day out. That's why they call coaching an art, because it's human art.
Who are some of the teams that you compete against in your conference?
We have, the staple crew has been Florida Gulf Coast, Lipscomb, Kennesaw's been in there. They're now leaving. Jacksonville, UNA, University of North Alabama. Most recently, Austin P has joined, University of Central Arkansas, Eastern Kentucky, have recently joined. Queens just joined, and the new team is Western Kentucky.
What is that home game?
Stetson as well, excuse me.
What is that home game atmosphere like when teams like Queens come to home versus going to Lipscomb?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What is that home game atmosphere like when different teams come to your home facility versus going away to teams like Lipscomb?
Yeah, it's away is away. Every program kind of has their thing. I think some have better crowds than others. Maybe that could be like their city. There's a lot to do, so it's not really something that you go do. But if they don't have a lot to do, they tend to have a bigger crowd, surprisingly. So like Central Arkansas is a really small gym, and it feels like a lot of people. It's kind of fun. I thought UNA does a really good job of getting their crowd into things. Most of the Florida schools, I think, struggle. I love the rivalry between us and JU. We're 18 miles apart, and we share the same city. And so we have what's called the River City Rumble. And I have a saying, if you're competing for a championship, you got to win your city. And I want in both arenas the packed crowd, and I want to make the game a bigger deal than it even is, and get more fans in the seats to watch our awesome sport. But playing at home, I'm biased, but I think we have the best home atmosphere in the conference. From We just got some swaggy LED lights, spotlights, just the bones of our gym, the makeup of our gym. It's a big arena. It holds 5,600 people, but the bowl just sits very steep right on top of the court. We're also 7 miles from the beach, so it's kind of fun to be at. And I think we have a really supportive student crowd. So it's fun to watch that. And also just a lot of schools across the country. I mean, you saw what Nebraska did. We don't play Nebraska, but we're being asked to play some pretty high level teams this year. And they pack their gym out every single year. Some are in the Big Ten, ACC, SEC. Some are top 15, top 10 in the country. And that's what you want to do, is you want to prepare for all the big moments. And you can't do that if you sit in your own gym in your own comfort. So you got to learn to play on the road and learn to sit on the heels of your bench and block all that out. That's a part of being a mental trainer, is just, riding that, enjoying that. Coach Kristen, our national team coach, like the best players in the world enjoy the crowd. They enjoy being booed at and, spit on, and not this day and age, but back in the day probably, but verbally just kind of, I guess, ridiculed. If you really think about it, in volleyball and in basketball, to a certain extent, the crowd has a huge part. Hockey has a huge part of the swaying of momentum. And I'd say soccer, but it's quicker, very explosive. So I think, the crowd can get behind us. And I think that's why you see such a big increase in people watching women's volleyball. It's blowing up right now.
What does that recruitment process look like for volleyball, and what do you look at as a head coach in those prospective student athletes?
Recruitment is different for everybody. It's very, it's dependent on your philosophy. Our philosophy is we want to make our gym better. And so whether you have the means to recruit a freshman to do that, or you go to the portal, is, going to be different to each institution. I think you've got to really be organized in your scholarship calendar and be prepared for storms. There's a lot of negative recruiting out there and poaching that's happening, we're hearing about, and that threatens the integrity of our sport. And you can't control that, but you have to be ready to pivot. So it's I hope our sports keeps its integrity. I mean, I have a daughter that's playing and she just started, and I hope that, if a coach offers her, verbally offers her that's pretty much binding until she signs. And I certainly wouldn't, I would respect the coaching staff that's there unless they left, to honor my commitment and my word. And so that's a big deal. I think that's parenting. I think that's more on the parents and recruiting coordinators to educate and ensure those commitments are being sought through, unless there's just something like they absolutely didn't know that would be emotionally or physically damaging. I think it's just a really important part of our sport. I think our sport is special. So it's a process. In volleyball, it's very early. Most players are committing their sophomore year. Heading into their junior year, they're into their sophomore year, heading in their junior year. If you're heading into your senior year, it's kind of on the later side. Not saying you can't find anything. A lot of coaches are holding out for a transfer spot. So it's if you're a game-changing freshman and you're better than a transfer, you're gonna be looked at. And so it doesn't matter why you're still on the market. It's just that you are, and there's a right fit for you, a place that you can call home and dig in and make them better and go towards the program's goals. And for us, we want people that are culture creators. Most people do. We want people to better our gym and want to help us get to our mission and repeat that day in, day out, year in, year out, and get a good education. Like that's something that schools and coaches should be promoting, is besides life skills, they're there to get a degree. We want to make sure that they can do that.
As a head coach, what is it like to see your freshmen put on that uniform for the first time versus your seniors putting it on for the last time?
Oh, freshmen, it's just excitement. They're nervous no matter what level they're at. Like, it's exciting to see where their base is. You see them in practice, and then we had a freshman this year just put on the jersey and just when the lights were on, she just lit it up. So she's got a strong mentality. And the senior side of things, it's just knowing how much they've put in for your program day in and day out, all the growth, all the small milestones that no one is really gonna, I can't even count how many little milestones and moments we've had. It's kind of like parenting. But you don't have to do all the disciplining. You're in a narrowed field of like their volleyball, which is what they love. So it's special. You get to be a part of something that they'll never forget in their life and be pretty impactful.
What is it like as a head coach seeing them go on and playing professional volleyball, whether it's Athletes Unlimited or the national round?
So fulfilling. Many athletes, and we're getting more and more as we get to a higher level. It's fulfilling to watch them get to play the sport they love, travel the world, get paid, and we have a Sally Mastero is our latest one. Rocio's getting ready to get a contract. And Sally Mastero is out on, there, and she has little girls with posters coming up to her saying, you're my hero and you're my role model. Like, that's powerful. And for her to like post about it and whatnot is just, it's rewarding because those are the things we talk about day in and day out.
What are some of your future plans for the volleyball program moving forward?
I really want to see our attendance increase and really put a valiant effort with our marketing team to just make awareness, draw excitement, enhance our in-game, what we're doing in between sets and whatnot. Like, I just think it can be an absolute blast, and it takes everyone. Hit some records in attendance. I know when I met with my AD, he's all about it. I mean, he sees what's happening at a national level. Like, why not us? Our soccer team, I was really proud of them. They had an all-time women's record. And I think it propels you to compete with each other. I don't know that we'll beat it because it was pretty high, but it's certainly worth trying. And that experience and creating those moments for the girls where people are there to watch them I feel like, is a part of the student athlete experience. And so traveling abroad, I want to take our program to a 4-year, or just once you go every 4 years, you go on a trip out of the country, and taking the time to fundraise for that and go is typically those turn out to be pretty hot years, those next years. So my plan right now is, past COVID, we've been doing a lot of enhancements, and got a new gym, we got new suites, we're getting a new locker room. So our plan is to do that in the summer heading into 2025. And I think just getting that new locker room, we have really big plans for that, is going to be a big step in the right direction. Just so it's very swaggy, and our girls are already grateful for what we have, and we have nice stuff, but the vision that we have laid out is pretty impeccable. So it's just exciting to grow in any capacity.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college volleyball?
Just to be patient, to give it all you got, but to truly be patient and know you're going to get there. And the fall sport athletes, it's tough because you jump right into it. Had you had the spring to kind of ease into things, it'd be easier, but it's not. So they kind of get things backwards. To come early to acclimate, I think it's really advantageous for volleyball players to come in the spring, and to get a semester under their belt, so they get that, what most spring athletes get, that kind of like that slow but not, where you really get to dig into technique. And learn all the tactics and systems at a really, really high level, but at a really slow pace. So you gain a tremendous amount of confidence. So I just think it's very fast and competitive. You know, all the girls that are returning, they're working their petunias off, lifting, strength and conditioning, SAQs, speed and agility, first step quickness, mental training, nutrition. They get all that, and you can't buy that experience. So it's just kind of like it smacks you like a stack of bricks. And if you aren't doing that already, it's a lot. Then being away from home. So I think we're good at it, onboarding, and I seek to be better. I mean, we haven't had anyone that wants to go home recently. I think our program is really welcoming and loving, and also it's rewarding how hard we get after it. The metrics we use to quantify growth, I think it's healthy.
What advice would you give those college volleyball players out there looking to play professional volleyball, whether it's Athletes Unlimited or overseas?
I just think dream big. There's a lot of opportunity, and you know, you never know. So keep the door open, and make sure that you're talking about it with your coach, and that you're in a supportive environment. Like, keep your head down, be successful, because most people are going to look at what did you do while you were there in your college sport. And you don't have to be in a top D1 school, like top 10 school, to be a great asset to a professional team. There's lots of levels and a lot of enhanced experience. So it's something to make sure that you're kind of manage your expectations about, and just getting with the right, getting a good contract, knowing your value, but not overstating your value so that you miss out on opportunities. Find someone you trust that has experience in it, that's connected. And yeah, I think it's really important.
What advice would you give those future coaches out there and even head coaches looking to build their own program and build their own legacy?
Did you say high school coaches?
No, college coaches out there.
College coaches. Oh, I think we need hungry, innovative coaches that are that want to be a part of a very growing industry right now, and it's going to change rapidly. So I think just believe in yourself, educate yourself, find a lot of mentors, surround yourself with really intelligent, wise people that you respect, that are hardworking, that have already done it, and that are continuing to do it, and keep them in your back pocket as a resource. Finish before you start. Make sure you know what you're aiming at, but develop those systems to get there. You know, paintbrush it against someone that's been in the industry a long time to give you some pointers, and then work. A lot of people expect things to happen and they don't want to work. You have to work. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of critics. You have to expect that. You have to pat yourself on the back. No one's going to do that for you. When you get to Division I, at that level, you have to know it's expected. You know, that perception of you is the reality. And it doesn't mean that you don't deserve to be praised or in an environment that's encouraging. In fact, those environments they will thrive. So if they really want to win and they study science, it's best to be encouraging. But at the same time, it's a lot for everyone, and you don't know what you don't know. So if you're not getting that, you can't make assumptions. So communicating at a high level, asking all the right questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Make sure that you are digging in and, you know, getting both sides of every decision you make. You know, if you go and if it's about a job and you want to take a job, sure, if you ask, everyone that's there, they're probably going to give you, more of a glimpse of what's good. Maybe people that have left will give you more of a neutral or negative, what they saw. And it's probably somewhere in between that, the reality of it. Make your own, no place is perfect, by the way. And I would just say some other advice is put your head down and don't gossip. Don't expect much in your first year. But have a plan, and then always tell your story. So if you don't tell your story, someone else will, and oftentimes it's not going to be as good or as flattering as if you told it. And another thing I've learned here is it's not bragging if it's true. So don't be afraid to say all the positive things, even the small nuggets that really add up to the bigger picture that maybe aren't seen or known. If you don't share it, people aren't going to know. And not that you should be seeking for validation or praise, but this is an industry of publicity. People want to know what either they're donating to or what they could join if they're a recruit or a family. They want to know your character. They want to know your parents' character. They want to know the player's character. And they certainly want to know who's guiding you. What's the real temperature of the administration? Do they know what they're doing? Do they support you? What happens when things aren't going well? What are they like? What's the resources really like? Does it adapt? Does it change? What's the president's viewpoint? If athletics has goals and it doesn't match the school's goals, that's really a moot point, right? If I have goals and they're way loftier, or I have bigger plans than what my AD has, like that's really a moot point. We have to all work together. And so communication is really important.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the program app?
So Coach K Wright on Instagram and on TikTok, same thing. And Twitter, I believe, as well. And UNF Ospreys BB is our Instagram and Twitter. So you can give us a follow there and just excited to share, on behalf of all volleyball coaches and represent our sport very well. And naturally, I have my head down where I'm at, but I also am a big advocate of our sport and for all people to join and, just the force of impacting lives and doing it in the right way. It's not about what it's how effective you are. And so just having the right methodology and really digging into self but also just being kind to yourself and balancing your life, making sure you're not neglecting your marriage or your family or your significant other is really important, because that's going to spill out into your public life. And also modeling to these, especially if you're a female, I think I take pride in modeling. Yes, you can be a high level coach and be incredibly successful and also have a Super Bowl marriage and a championship level relationship with your kids and develop them. Are we perfect? No, but we can certainly strive to be. One doesn't have to sacrifice for the other. You can balance it. It's an art, but you can if you're intentional about it.
Thank you again, Coach Kristen Wright, for your interview, and best of luck in your future at North Florida.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon. You can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Kristen Wright, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.